Hello lads, today I'm going to be showing you all some of the fixes that I have devised for some classic piston doors by Deco, Sydney, Game For You, and Yoptropics. So I don't know if y'all have been around Redstone for a long time, but this door here is made in 2014 I think, this one a little bit earlier and this one a bit after that. They don't work in the current versions without any modifications, but we will try them. We'll try every single one as is, and then I will show you what I fixed about them and why. And some of these really have a real list of things you gotta fix. So we'll start with the 5x5 because it actually has the least amount of things wrong with it. So I'll just show this one working. This, of course, by Deco, Sydney, and Game For You. The top's a bit slow, but you know, well, whatever. It's fine. It works. Does its job. The bottom's kind of nice. Unfortunately, it relies on jeb extenders, which broke in 1.9. And you might be wondering, what is a jeb extender? Well, basically, I'll just quickly show this right here. We're gonna use the door, don't worry. But basically, when you turn these off, it'll retract both pistons. It's supposed to leave this one up here. If you go watch the video on this, you'll see exactly what I mean. It's like it'll stay up there, and then yeah, I don't know. I don't know why that worked or why it's 3 ticks and not 2 ticks, which would make more sense, but you know, I think that has to do with just how funky jeb extenders work. But anyway, let's give this a go and see how it works. As you can see, I've put a sign there. Okay, wait, the closing worked. That's kind of cool. All right. Oh, well, that actually didn't break too badly, all things considered. But anyhow, I'll show you the fix that I devised for this thing. So obviously it's not going to work as needed, so I added a couple target blocks. This one could have been the same setup as that one, but I needed more space for other stuff going on. So my modification included kind of branching off of, because basically the bottom storage pistons branched off of, or from the bottom storage pistons branched the closing right here, or for the first jeb extender usage. And so what I did was I branched off the same circuit right here, and I added this wooden shovel and a dropper and this target, which kind of goes into this triple retraction circuit, and it keeps these pistons on for a longer amount of time. And basically, I'm just reusing that circuit, so it looks kind of like this. And I'm using a 2-tick pulse to spit the blocks with the torches instead. So it just kind of does that. And then you can reuse it after the storage goes, which is pretty nice. So once you actually incorporate this into the wiring, you'll see a few problems because you have to, you know, in the original door, you can see that there is a monostable right here that kind of goes up into this pulse, which does the final opening for the pistons, if that didn't break, of course. But that doesn't really work because we have this here, and also we have to have a signal strength filter. So with this thing, we actually have these. This is kind of like the same timing as was in the original door. There's a thing back here that goes to turn off the torches for a little bit, so they can actually, it's the right timing to make them extend at this level, because the torches would update this one first naturally, so you have to do that. Ooh, cool beans. So let's just put that back. So basically we have a signal strength of a lot here. It's wooden shovels in the dropper. Same thing as here, or would be there, I guess. Just kind of for fun. And then it just goes up into here as normal. And it turns out you don't really need a monostable. It just works anyway, because it's, you know, it's a 4-tick, who cares. Anyhow, we'll just watch this thing work now, because this is the input for it. There's a dust here that turns on, that activates the triple retraction. So this is how it would be after it closes. Basically, these blocks will just be there after the opening. So it'll do that, and then this. So that's pretty cool. And you could just extend it again like this. That would model the closing. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So I'm just gonna quickly show how I fixed this. And it looks like someone had used this or something. I don't know. Or maybe I'm just silly. Could be both. Anyhow, so first thing we got to do is get rid of all this stuff and get rid of this stuff. You can keep that repeater, set it to 3 ticks. And up here, we're going to have a target block, this torch, And then from here, I'm going to have a two two-tick repeaters, and then add a target block here, which will extend that because there was a torch on it. And luckily that didn't do anything, which is good. Oh yeah, it gets spotted by that, of course. I knew that was going to happen from the beginning, of course. Anyhow, we're going to make this thing into a target block and make sure to replace the repeater on top of said target block. Set all these to 2 ticks, and then remove this thing. You can leave that here. I think it needs to be a target later for certain reasons. Yeah, so let's just get this circuit. This has to be a slab now. Oh well. Then we run this down into a 3-tick repeater. And then DH here. Short for dropper hopper, as we say in the industry. Shout out to J2Go. For the background as well. Just any non-stackable item. That was the one that I grabbed first for whatever reason. Wait, that should be green. Then you can see this will reach all the way over there. And then we're going to delete that dust. We're going to have 2 comparators like this. Dust here. This comparator will run into 2 3-tick repeaters right here. Timing is altered a little bit because there's a little bit of machinery going on in here. And then we have a 1-tick repeater here. And then this dust right here would actually cross power this repeater. So unfortunately we need to like do some funky stuff with this target and then place a tripwire right here. So it only powers that block and not the repeater. So that's great. And then finally we need a signal strength right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to place a dropper right here, place a torch underneath it so it doesn't get powered and spit out its items. And then I'm just going to put in a couple wooden shovels. I think this should be fine. Just put in like 5. Who cares? Anyhow, that should be it. Because the top still works surprisingly. It's very, very well made. They really cooked with that one. And this should no longer be busted. If, of course, I remember correctly. Oh, looks like I messed something up, unfortunately. Did I mistime that? Don't do that. Set those to 3 ticks. I think I actually said that in the video as well. So if you don't set it to 3 ticks, that happens. And that's not very good. So, onwards. This should be fully functional now. This machine has been fixed. Very nice. And of course I did the non-locational version because I don't care. And the top is just exactly how it is. No 1.16 dust changes, nothing. So that's pretty cool, I think. So let's move on to this 1260 block 6x6 made by Deco and Sydney. So this thing still works despite its old age with some of the fixes that I've designed. This one I tried fixing a lot back in the day, like in 1.12, 1.15, 1.16, and so far after 1.16 nothing else has gone wrong, so that's good, I guess. Let's just see what happens if we use this. I expect this to go very poorly. The closing probably won't even work. Oh my goodness. What happened? Was there even an item in this? Oh wait, no, it just got cross-powered by this dust. Oh my god. Let's just see if I can at least help it resemble something of a functional door. Aha, okay. Trying our best here. Okay, so far so good. Well, just based on this, it doesn't look like very much went wrong at all. But trust me, there gets some funky stuff. And also the bottom quad doesn't work either, unfortunately. So even though the piston tape died to 1.16 dust, the bottom actually died to 1.15 repeater changes. It's very interesting. But first off, this was in the tutorial. Yeah, just do better. You can just move that down there. So that's kind of trivial. But now we have the original version of this bottom quad, since we didn't get to see it in all of its glory. I have this little setup here that kind of mimics what happens in the real door. This piston tape is so wonky. But anyway, it kind of like works, but then you get that because this timing here doesn't work out because of 1.15 repeater changes. So we had to improvise a little bit to fix that. Here's the fixed version of the door. The changes include changing this repeater to 3 ticks instead of 1. This repeater down here is 2 ticks instead of 1. This repeater should be on 3 still. But then this repeater changes to 2 ticks instead of 1. And then there's a 4-tick repeater and an observer here instead of the DH, because the DH is too fast and there's actually no way to get it to work. Personally, I don't mind if fixes that happen to be like past observers being added to the game, like uses observers. So, you know, it doesn't really matter. It preserves a lot of the original wiring anyway. Yeah, it works very nicely now that we have changed that. But that was the easy part. Now we have more annoying things with this. So as you can see, there is a very annoying dropper hopper system here. You can see there are 36 items in here, and before 1.16 this dust doesn't actually solid or power this block at all, but the dust runs up the side and does power the block. But it turns out it's actually pretty simple. All you do is see, okay, so if this has to drain 14 items to get down to signal strength 1, you just add 14 items, because then it goes down to signal strength 0, because this dust now locks this hopper, so that's kind of cool. So you just do that, and then that part is working again. So that's why the tape didn't fire, because this thing went very wrong. But now we come to the most annoying part of the door, this top closing. This is also present in the 7x7, so but it's easier to fix in that one, luckily, because the extra move circuit is much better. So you might have noticed that the top opened completely when I used it in the non-fixed door, and that's because the extra move circuit actually does work. So that's pretty cool. But unfortunately we have to do a couple of things to fix the closing that kind of break the extra move circuit as well, so that's bad. So the fix that I came up with was adding a dust right here, because if I added a rail or something, this piston would power whenever this line powered, but since this goes with the repeater, having a dust down here will only update this piston when, you know, this line is powered from here. So this works on closing very well. You can see now this piston actually, you know, fires, which is very good. That's what we want. And move these back up. I have to do that a lot because the extra move circuit like kind of does that. But anyway, this kind of breaks the extra moves, unfortunately. It doesn't appear to break it at first, but when you retract the second row of blocks, you can see we have some unintended behavior. And that is because we have this thing, and what it does is when it turns on, usually when these turn on, right, these pistons are still retracting, and so they don't actually get updated at all. But this piston finishes extending 3 game ticks after this repeater turns on, and it just so happens that this right here will already have been retracted. And so when this thing finishes its extension, it updates those, and then you get blocks pushed down out of the ceiling. So that's not very good. However, there is a very interesting fix to this. Now I'll show this right here. So you just add 1 repeater right here. And what this does is, if you look closely, I'm not going to bother with the closing again since this doesn't change the closing at all. We're just going to do the extra moves. So the first one, it just works the same, and this thing retracts up. Goodness gracious, I need to fix this again. I should have like added a setup to fix these for me. But anyway, you probably won't be able to see it, but these pistons do not fire because this thing gets spammed at the exact wrong time. What it does is it retracts this piston, so it's actually, it has 1 game tick of reset time when this thing turns on, right? And what that does is makes it so after 3 game ticks, when this thing extends, this dust will have turned off from the repeater right here at the exact same time it finishes, but since this is a piston, it's like processed last. So this never actually gets updated at all, and they just don't fire. So that's a very interesting looking fix for that, which is kind of funny, but you know, I'm not even going to bother fixing that. But that comes with its own set of problems, because if you look in the actual door itself, having a dust here is not something that was intended or planned or wanted. So in order to get that to happen, we had to do a little bit of improvisation by putting a comparator right here, because we can't just have a dust on a slab here, because it would power you know, the piston that's underneath this right here, and that's not good. So we need a comparator here, and because this gets single strength 15, we need a repeater that goes straight into it. So we get 2 more ticks of input delay on these side pistons, but that's not really a huge deal, I guess. Oh, and also there's a target here to block off that redstone, I guess. And we just have to take off 2 ticks on this right here, so it's still sync on the closing. And for the rest of it, we need to add 2 ticks to these side pistons to make them like relatively sync. And because of this repeater right here, we can't have this torch in the right spot, so we had to move it over a little bit. Luckily that still fits, but even worse is that when we don't have this dust here, this tape piston doesn't fire. And if you look at the open state of this thing, this piston tape doesn't finish pushing over the blocks. Like, oh my goodness, that's just how it works, but you know. And then you have this dust here that finishes pushing it over, but since we have a repeater there now, it does not work. So I had to add this dropper hopper circuit in the bottom, and that powers this over in time. And also I flip-flopped the delay on these repeaters, so that's like actually good now. And yes, this is locational in 1.15, unfortunately. Not much I can really do about that, unless you like... Actually, I don't really know what to do at all about that, because it would require like putting a repeater here, and then that would break. So yeah, not really something I'm wanting to figure out. And also as a side note, this target right here that blocks this between this and redirects this away from a piston, because there's a piston here in the actual door. It's just a target because, you know, and then there's a dust here that like looks to power this piston, but in reality it only updates it. I guess this could be a rail, but whatever. It's going to take a little bit, but we're going to fix this door. We're going to put a lever on this first and foremost. So let's start with the bottom here. Flip-flop the delay on those repeaters. Add whatever in here. Looks like the repeater fell in, but just by chance. And I did actually test the location. It does work here. So you just put a comparator, runs up to here. 2 ticks there. Add 2 ticks here. 4 tick repeater, 2 tick repeater. Now we can't access this torch, which is unlucky. Break that block. Torch here, because there's room. Very nice. Slab here, dust, put the block back. And then we have to change this up. Used to be a tripwire there, now there's not. Also, change this to having 14 items while you're at it. And that works for just the tape. Also, this item doesn't have to be non-stackable anymore, but like, who really cares, I guess? Break that, because that kind of gets in the way. Make this into a slab. This is not slab in the original door. I'm not sure why this was a slab, probably because I like reverted it from a fixed state. So it should in fact look like this, but you have to turn it into a slab. 1 tick repeater on that. And then you need to have red right here, just 3 blocks like so. Put a dust here, block that off. Put a 1 tick repeater and then a comparator. And that would go into this dust. I think that would like still work, but for some reason I moved that up and then put an activator rail right here. I guess I was greatly inspired by the funky activator rail tech. And then we need to make this thing a target. Make sure to place the 1 tick rep back on this thing. And then we need to have a dust on top of this thing. Luckily it doesn't actually do anything to this piston because of the activator rail. Very cool. And then put a 2 tick repeater because we need to take 2 ticks off of the delay here. And then we're in the top here. This is annoying to place, but we need a slab, which is nowhere to be found. I'm gonna have to find that in my inventory. Zarn dust here. Then actually we should place, actually we can't place the repeater yet. We also have to incidentally change the direction of this updater piston that I forgot to mention. So yeah, put that facing upwards because we ran out of space. Put a piston facing upwards here, but also make sure you can, you know, leave. And then finally put a repeater here, but also not finally because we have to change the bottom. 3 ticks on this repeater, 2 ticks on this repeater, And yes, there is actually a fix for this observerless, but it's like disgusting, so don't do that. Because for some reason there's just no amount of timings that work on this thing. Set this thing to 2 ticks, place an observer here, block 4-tick repeater right there, and then make sure to replace this 1-tick repeater that you broke. And do not set a repeater to the wrong timing again, because I know better now. And if I'm not mistaken, that should work now. Looks like I suck. I actually messed up this right here. This needs to be a slab, or else things will not end well for you. And I'm just gonna spam the hell out of this. Bruh, are you serious? Why did I leave that like that? I forgot about that very small thing that actually trolls the entire door. Oh my goodness. So yeah, just change that to, if you... I'm surprised that didn't break during the closing. That's kind of impressive. Well, I guess why would it? Because, you know, there's actually no blocks there in front of the piston. So yeah, finally this should work. That was an absolute disaster. But so was the process of fixing this door, so I'm completely okay with that. Sheesh. So finally, moving on to this 7x7 by Deco City and Yop Tropics. We have, it looks kind of nice actually. The animation has been preserved. And it looks wonderful. The quint is pretty fast. I like this door a lot. I just kind of wish the quint would, you know, activate during this sequence because this is kind of boring. I actually don't know what'll happen when I use this door. So yeah, let's see what happens. So this one has a lot of things wrong with it too, a lot of which are 1.16 things. So let's just give it a go. Oh my god, that is terrible. How did this even happen? I don't even want to open this thing. Just get rid of it. It's not even going to do anything. Completely busted. And there's the tape stopping, I guess. That part still works, even though there's no tape to stop anymore. So the first two things are pretty obvious. 1.16 broke this slab redirection thing, as usual, so this thing doesn't power anymore, so you need to make that a target. And then this thing also broke, so you can just replace all this with just a block and target, like so. And then delete all this crap. Very wonderful. But anyhow, that's the more simple things that are wrong with this door. We actually have one more funny one, and it's this redstone torch on top of a dropper, or on top of a dropper hopper. This is literally in the tutorial. I think Mojang fixed this like in around 1.11 or 12. I don't know when you couldn't place these anymore. I think it was the same update where you can no longer place levers on top of hoppers, which I think was like 1.12 or something. I don't know. But the fix for that is very simple. You just move the dropper hopper a little bit, and then you move the torch onto the side of that block instead, and that fixes it. This is just like a lock-a-stable type deal, so I'll just demonstrate it, I guess. Just has a lock-a-stable. Very cool. Interesting circuit. But anyway, we noticed the tape did not fire, and that's for an interesting reason. There is this circuit right here to control the bottom row of storage pistons, like the ones facing upwards. And if we activate it here, you can see it does 2 pulses, and it should let something through here, because it's not actually a toggle. If you would think it's a toggle, you're wrong. But it doesn't do anything. And that's because there is some weird behavior that I don't know when it broke, but this used to actually power the dropper. Like, you used to actually hear a click when you ran this. Like, huh? It doesn't make any sense. I don't know when this behavior stopped, but, you know, it's fine, I guess. Maybe like 1.15, I don't know. But anyway, basically what would happen is this would fire 3 ticks before this went through, so this would actually let like a pulse through. So the fix for this is very difficult. You just run that through here. You don't need any of that at all. Just do that. I don't know why they didn't do that in the first place, but you know, I guess it's fine. Anyway, now on to the more annoying fixes. This one is actually the most recent thing that broke. 1.18.2 changed sand, and this doesn't really work anymore. This used to power this because sand now falls in a different tick phase, which means it does not activate pistons when powered like this, but it still activates repeaters. So the you know, this part still works. It's just this piston doesn't extend. The extra moves also don't really work, even though it looks like it's closer to working. We have another sand that decides to put an end to that. So yeah, the fix to this is putting an observer to power it on the the opening for the first time. It's just like the same timing, whatever. And then replace the second sand with just one of these. So instead of having the sand fall down, it'll just get pushed down by this thing. The result's the same, gets a 2 game tick pulse. It's fine. But surprisingly, this thing still works, as you can see. It's because the sand, well, because it's like, this is perma-powered, it's not like powering and depowering the piston, because that's actually impossible to do now. There's no way to adjust that timing to make it work. But if it's like perma-powered, this piston will do 2 game tick pulse, and then it will start retracting before the block arrives, because it's a normal piston. And then, yeah. Well, actually, that would work with a sticky as well, but whatever. You get the deal. There's this funny thing. I don't know. Whatever. That'll do the job. That's to actually power the quint. So that's why nothing happened when we opened the door. Now, finally, we just have to deal with this thingy right here. As you can see, when we try to close the door, it doesn't work. Same deal as the 6x6, honestly. We fix it in the exact same way. The extra move still works, as usual, but this time the extra moves don't actually troll us, because there's a very long pulse that takes place in the extra moves. So I'll just show that here. I'll only do one. You see the pulse is actually very long, so these pistons won't even get updated by this piston extending and finishing its extension after 3 game ticks. So the closing now works. Very nice. And then, yeah, I'm just gonna leave that because it's not important. Now the extra moves also still works. Wonderful. So yeah, you can see this doesn't update it anymore. So this is actually quite a simple fix. Oh wait, that wasn't actually the last one. Oh my goodness. We have an even more dubious fix for something that went wrong. You can actually see in the store that these pistons stay activated, even though they really shouldn't be. And that's because before 1.16, this dust did not actually power this block and these pistons, but they do now. This was actually kind of annoying to fix because there's really no good way to make a hopper timer. And it also just so happens that there is a redstone block right here that needs to power dust on top of this, and there's really no way to get rid of any of this. So the way to actually fix this is get rid of the hopper clock altogether. You can see it waits a delay and then does that, and that's to make sure that the bottom does not open before the blocks are pushed down by the top. So that's kind of cool, I would say. So how we went about fixing this was using a very interesting bud setup, which actually takes advantage of this thing working. So we just kind of replaced this comparator with a repeater to power the side pistons, like to power them. And then this thing gets stuck on because it's depowered by this target last. And then we have this fun little thing that stays on when this redstone block retracts, because this is also powered by the thingy. And this thing stays on for an extra 4 game ticks, so it doesn't actually like retract, otherwise that would update it. And so then when the quint actually uses the updater pistons, which signifies that the block has successfully moved down, we just update that. And you might be like, what is this? And yes, there is actually an item in the furnace, otherwise it would not work. It's a very interesting little bud setup. Even if the comparator does not get ticked at all, it still provides a block update to the piston out here, so that's kind of interesting. Very cool. It would not if there was no item in the furnace, rather. So that's cool. Anyway, let's go ahead and fix these things on the real door now. So first off, let's get rid of this extremely convoluted dropper circuit and then place back what was there. Luckily, this thing still works. Put a 3 tick, 2 tick, 2 tick monostable here, and that works. Put a lever on this John. And then we have to move this torch, which really, if you somehow manage to get this, I applaud you, because it is not very easy to do at all. And it also breaks if you use the door at all. If it gets a redstone update, it breaks. So that's interesting, I suppose. So we just got to move that over. Let's just throw an item in here. Put that here. And put a torch on this block right here. So that fixes that part. Now that we're onto the target fixes, we're just going to break all that stuff and then put a target right here. And then replace this with a target block. No other changes are needed in the bottom. And now we're going to work on the top. So we're going to take out this sand. Leave the normal piston though, because it's chilling. Then place a normal piston right here, and then a target right there. And also, if this thing messed up in World Edit, there should be a comparator here, but World Edit loves to delete stuff above containers for whatever reason. I don't know. Anyway, to start the quint, we're going to have a sticky piston here with an observer. Once again, there is actually an observerless fix. Credits to GWJD for finding it, but it's not like perfect, I guess, but I feel like it's kind of hard to replicate something perfectly because you pretty much have to change the entire thing. So he came up with something pretty cool to fix it. Not going to show it in this video. You can find it on my third plot. And then finally, we have a slab right here. If I can just get a slab, please. And then redstone running down to redirect it. And then we're going to have... Oh, it's actually not finally because I didn't fix the hopper timer. So there's that. And then the rest of this works, which is nice. And then we have to fix this hopper timer thing. It looks like this also did not get carried over, which is... No! Let's keep that comparator there. Let's just get rid of these things. Make this a repeater. Oh, I mean, you can keep it a comparator if you want, but you don't have to. Put a target right there. Put a piston right here, block. And then put a furnace. Put an item inside furnace. And then place a 2 tick repeater right there. And that should set up the bud successfully, because what happens is this torch is what activates the redstone block double extender for the first time that it's used. But on the retraction, the second time that it's used, it's actually powered from this unstackable item, which does not reach all the way down here. So it doesn't actually power this, which is kind of cool that they at least considered the animation on this store. So if I didn't forget anything, this should be everything all set. The store actually has a little bit of cooldown time after the opening is done, which is kind of interesting. I think they just wanted to stop cooldown time on the closing, but it's that hopper clock that you can see on the top left of your screen. And it looks like I actually succeeded this time in fixing this door, so that's good. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed watching this video. I did a lot of setup to explain all these different things. I had fixed them all previously, but it turns out that a lot of my fixes for the 6x6 weren't actually optimal, so I changed a couple of those. I was dumb. I was a dum-dum back then. Anyhow, yeah, thank you all very much for watching this video, and I will see you all in the next one. See ya!